Okay, so we're group 1 for case study number 6, and Hallie and I did most of the work, and Camille was able to help a little bit, but she was sick, so she wasn't really able to help a whole lot. So it's on, the case study is over Columbia Memorial Hospital, and it's a for-profit hospital owned by the Health Services of America, and they have an emergency room, but they also have this walk-in clinic that they started a little while ago to kind of help take care of some of the more minor emergencies rather than having people go to the emergency room when they needed immediate attention for something like a sore throat.
Okay, this is the data that we're using. As you can see, we have data from 2009 and then monthly data, average data from 2010. And as you can see on the net profit and loss, this clinic is currently not profitable. They're losing money every month, and so we're trying to determine what we can do, if anything, to turn the clinic around and help them become profitable. And we have a marketing director who has proposed a marketing plan to help bring in some more business and increase our patients. There is a competitor hospital in town who is called the Baptist Hospital, and they're our biggest competition. They have recently been purchasing some other walk-in clinics in town, and so our marketing director has come up with a plan to market to some of the local businesses and try to bring in some more occupational health services, such as work comp cases and exams for employees, and try to increase our daily patient by marketing to those local employers. And so these are the numbers that we went off of, and we have 3 options that we are examining and trying to determine. The first option is to continue operating how we have been without the marketing scenario, and as you can see, that's not really been very effective, and so that is probably not our number 1 option. Our second scenario is to continue operating and to incorporate this marketing proposal that our marketing director has come up with. And the third scenario is to completely shut down the facility, which we would like to try to avoid.
And so the analysis for the case study, the first question was wanting us to make a profit and loss statement, assuming that everything stayed the same without the marketing plan. So with this, you can see that every month the clinic is losing $3,171, and in order to break even, they need to be seeing 1,428 patients per month, or 78-ish a day, and so 70. So that 78 is about 3 more than they're seeing per day now.
Okay, so on our next slide, we're going to look at our profit and loss, what it would potentially be with the changes in marketing, with adding the marketing program. And as you can see, if we leave it as it is, we're losing almost $15,000 a month. If we can add 1 to 10 patients, we're still losing money. We add 11 to 20 patients, we're still not making a profit. But once we reach the 21 to 30 level, we start to see a profit at approximately 28 more patients. And so that's our goal, is to get to at least that point so we're making a profit. 28 is our break-even point, and we're hoping to get at least to that and then some. We have a capacity to treat 85 patients a day, and currently we're only treating 45, so we'd like to get to where we are reaching our full capacity and maximizing our profits.
So with how the clinic is running right now, it's running as much as it can with the employees it has. So if they were to be able to add the 2.6 additional visits that it needs without adding the marketing plan, then it's going to take a big loss just based on the extra staffing it would need in order to handle those extra 2.6 visits. To add a single patient with the marketing plan, that would add an additional, so a single patient each, a single additional patient each day. It would add $21,000 in fixed and semi-fixed costs during the month, and that's $700 per day, and that's because there is $466 more in staffing and $233 for marketing each day. And so in order to break even with this marketing plan and the additional staffing necessary for that, the clinic needs to see at least 28 more patients a day, and that's going to be 73 patients total in order to just break even, and then any more over that will help add to the profit. Although once the clinic goes over 31 more patients each day, then the staffing costs almost double. They go from 16,000 to 27,000, and but still, even with that, the clinic is able to make a profit.
Okay, so after all of this, we were to assume that after we did all these analyses and we had figured all these numbers, then we remember that it's a for-profit corporation and we must pay taxes. So what impact does this tax status have on our break-even analysis? And we decided that the taxes would not impact the break-even analysis because we only pay taxes on what the profits were. So we would figure that out at the end of with the profits. And then if the clinic, does the clinic have any value to the hospital beyond that considered by the numerical analysis just conducted, and do the actions by Baptist Hospital have any bearing on the final decision regarding the clinic? And yes, this clinic is very important to Columbia. They can take the patients that come into the walk-in clinic, and any of them that require hospital care, they can refer them directly to the Columbia Hospital and hopefully keep them from going to one of the other competitors in town and keep a bigger share of the market for their walk-in clinic and the Columbia Hospital. It also can help relieve some of the burden on the emergency department at the hospital. And the fact that Baptist Hospital is buying up similar small clinics shows that they are being very aggressive about their marketing, and they're trying to take their share of the market. So I think that should be a great incentive to us to do everything we can to make this clinic profitable. So we need to keep up with the competition and the demands of the community so that we can remain profitable as both as a hospital and as the walk-in clinic.
And so our final recommendation for this walk-in clinic is to go forward with the marketing plan and the increasing of the staff and the doctors, and aim for getting at least 28 more patients in a day, or visits in a day. That way they can meet the break-even analysis and hopefully get even more than that. So that way they're able to make a profit. And because yeah, they need at least that 28 per day to make it work, but then they'll be making profit fairly quickly.
I think that our main goal is to reach our capacity of 85 patients. If we have that capacity, our goal is to ultimately reach that capacity.
Yeah, and then in the future we would have to look at maybe expanding the clinic or building another clinic.
Great. That's your last one. You guys did a very nice job. I really appreciate the fact that you have it on slides. It's well thought out. And if Kylie, if you don't mind, keep those slides up there. Just refer to a couple of them. Very well done. So let me throw some other things out there, and I know this is kind of a little bit now beyond kind of the fact pattern that you were given. What? So if you're recommending that they move with the marketing program, and you got this break-even point you got to reach, what do you think is a reasonable, how do I say it, a good monitor? I mean, so do you do this for a year? If you don't, how long do you wait to make another decision or another analysis to say, okay, we've been doing this now for 3 months, we still haven't reached the break-even point? What do you think about those thoughts? Because it sounds like you're recommending to, let's say I hired you guys, let's say I'm the CFO and I hired you guys as consultants to do this analysis for me. Or maybe you're working in a department and you've done the analysis. What I'm hearing you say is you recommend that we move forward with the proposed marketing. And I'm the CFO, I'm like, okay, but how much of a chance do I give this thing?
I think that it's something that's going to need to be monitored on a monthly basis. You're going to need to look over what your numbers are at the end of each month, but give yourself a year. We also have to remember, which we didn't mention, but if we totally close the clinic, we're going to be out, I'm sure we could get some money for the equipment, but we're also going to be out the 3 months rent that it's going to cost to break the lease agreement, which is $37,500, which is a good chunk of money. So you're going to be out some money anyway, even if you decide to close up shop. So I think there's potential there to be successful, but I do think it's something that you'd want to monitor every month and see what you're doing, if there's things that you can improve on a monthly basis. But then I say give it at least a year to
I agree.
Revisit again in a year.
Yeah, let's follow that, because I think it's a wise suggestion. So let's follow that. Let's say we're now a year later, and we just, we've tried our best. You guys monitored it every month. We did see an uptick in visits, but we never really reached that sweet spot, right, that you need to at least be breaking even. Let's say we got, of your 28 that you're seeing we need, let's say we got half of that. Let's say we got 14. And we did that, it was a rough start the first few months, and but we were able to get up there. So we know our marketing worked, right? Because we did see an increase in these patients. But let's say the last 3 months of the year, we only got up to an average about an extra 15 patients, and that's the best 3 months we had. What do you think at that point? Do you recommend now closing the whole thing and turning the whole thing off, or what do you do?
I don't think so. I think that as long as you're seeing an upward trend and that you're heading in the right direction. I know when my husband and I opened our practice, we were told when we graduated, he's a chiropractor, and to give yourself 4 to 5 years to expect to see real profit. And that's pretty much what it was. And I don't know how long this clinic has been open. We only have data for 2 years, so I don't know if we can assume it's only been that long. But I think as long as you're seeing an upward trend and you're getting closer towards those numbers and you can see that your marketing is working, if you have the means to keep, if your hospital has money to help keep the clinic afloat, I think it's give it another year and see where you're at again.
Yeah, good. And so let's say we're trying to convince the CEO now. Let's say you really believe that. You're very optimistic. The CFO, he's just concerned about the big picture and the numbers, and so you're trying to convince them. And then, again, this might be a little bit outside of what this case study is, but because I think what you're suggesting is very reasonable. And as you said, you've seen some improvement, so we know them. And the only change we made was the marketing, so we know it's out there, right? Maybe we need to tweak the marketing. Maybe the city's not growing as fast as we thought it would, or whatever. What would be some evidence that we would then want to? I'm not saying you have this evidence now, but what would you want to find to convince the CEO not to give up on it? So now we're not so much trying to prove that we're going to be right, but if you go these drastic routes of either stopping the whole thing or closing the whole thing, you're going to have other ramifications. You mentioned the lease. what other data would you might want to start mining?
So something that you would want to keep in mind is that the clinic is helping take the burden off of the emergency rooms for things that are not real emergencies. So
Yeah.
it would be good to get the data of how many cases were taken away from the emergency room, which I'm sure would be more expensive for the hospital to take care of,
Yep.
were taken from the emergency room and put into the clinic.
Yeah, exactly. So how would we do that? Because what kind of data would you look for? So let's assume that
Um,
you said earlier you only have 2 years worth of data for financial data for this clinic. So let's say it opened up 2 years ago. We're now into 1 year of your marketing plan, so we're 3 years into the whole thing. What would you do to kind of show you've taken burden off, the clinic has taken burden off the ER?
I think you'd have to
um,
go to the ER and have them pull their numbers and say,
Yeah.
okay, this is where we were 3 years ago, and this is where we are today.
Yep.
And that might be even another aspect of the marketing plan. You could get the emergency department on board. Have them, especially when they're slammed, if they have cases that they know can be handled at the walk-in clinic, have them
Yeah.
make sure they are recommending that patients go to the walk-in clinic to save themselves time and money, and the hospital too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what I was fishing for. Is you're going to have to, now the data's not really in your hands, right? It's someplace else, because you don't keep track as the clinic, as the walk-in clinic, of ER visits. So
Right.
I think you have to do what you just suggested. Is you go back to the ER, you've asked them not only from when we started, what's the burden been, but maybe go back a couple years before this clinic even existed, and see what their burden was, what kind of visits they were doing. So let's say, they were getting 100 sore throats a month before this clinic started. You start the clinic, and you see those types of visits start going down, and then you can maybe attribute it to the clinic. Now, that's not, you can't always just assume, right? Because we already read in this case study that there are other clinics like this, right, in the town. And so you have to, a lot of these things are assumptions, right? And they're variables, and you're doing your best guesswork with what data you have available. Because maybe 3 other clinics were opened up across town, and that's what caused the decrease in the burden of the ER. So we don't always know, but at least you could start doing that sort of thing. There's one other thing that you guys mentioned. I think it was on your question. Go back let's see, maybe it was slide 8. Or maybe it's slide 9. Yeah. So, yeah, it's question 9. So what else could you do to show the CFO, whoa, this clinic is more than just its balance sheet, right? Because the numbers are what they are for the clinic. But is that the only thing the clinic has influence on for Columbia Hospital?
Yeah, so the hospital, we could ask the hospital if they have data on how many patients came directly as referrals from the clinic.
Exactly.
That is showing, that they're supporting each other, that the clinic does have a benefit for the hospital. Because some of those patients, if they go into another walk-in clinic that, say, Baptist owns, you can guarantee they're sending to the Baptist hospital. So if they come into our walk-in clinic and it's something that they need to go to the hospital for, they're getting that chunk of the market that would be going automatically to Baptist if this clinic were not open.
That's exactly right. That's what I was fishing for. So you could go and you could ask the hospital for data that would suggest they came directly from the clinic, and then you can even take it a little further and you could say, now let's see what kind of services were generated because of that, right? So they came in.
Have you made because of the patients that we send over here?
Exactly, because let's say the walk-in clinic doesn't have a CT scanner, right? But the patient came in with a certain condition. They did an initial workup in a lower-cost environment than the ER, but the result is you're still sending more legitimate patients to the ER, right? Not the sore throats, not the chronic headaches and those sorts of things. So that's exactly right. And on just a personal note, just a couple of weeks ago, I had an issue. I went into our walk-in clinic in our town here. It was on a Saturday, and they didn't even see me because I was telling them my chief complaint, and they said, "Oh, that's going to require an ultrasound. We don't do that here on the weekends. You're going to have to go to the ER." And of course, they recommended 3 ERs in the area that entity. I could have chosen as a patient to go to a closer one, but I ended up going to one of their ERs. And then they did the ultrasounds for me and took care of it. So it's real. You know, this is not what you just explained is absolutely real.
Yeah, not only that, but you know, if, like MRIs, and I know you mentioned the CT and all those. I hadn't thought about that. Even if there's lab work that they can't do in the clinic, they can refer over to that. And even further, if they have a PT department in the hospital, which I know the hospital in Rexburg does, and I don't know how many other ones do, but they have their own PT department. So
yep.
Anybody that we sent over there that needed a surgery, then they had the surgery, and the surgeon probably referred them to the PT department. So it's kind of could have a ripple effect, and maybe
Yep.
numbers that you never can really grasp all of the effect that the clinic has, a positive effect on the hospital.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that a little bit because sometimes as I've experienced in healthcare administration, that people get so hung up on the balance sheet, right, and on what the actual number crunching does. Well, yeah, but that's not what it's all about. I mean, that's a big chunk of it, and we do have to make those numbers work, but we can also try to dig a little deeper and try to find, oh, there's other valuable, kind of the intangibles, right? It's not as sound financially, but there is something there. It's not as easily measured, is what I guess I'm trying to say. So great job, you guys. I really, really appreciate the clarity, and it was succinct, and it was to the point. And so, Mikayla, I don't know what you were talking about. You said you guys struggled with this chapter. Well, the struggling was worth it because you came out with a great presentation. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before I let you go, I'll let you, if you have any other last questions or comments, but I just wanted to repeat, if you'll post these slides in the group discussion board, I'll post the link to the recording, and then monitor the discussion board. And one way to, improve your grade even more is, I mean, you've done a great job here. I'm not suggesting you need to worry, but monitor that discussion board, and somebody might bring something up, and be bold. Say, hey, did you think about this? Or we thought this. And there's a way to do that without, offending people. But, bring out good ideas, and that can help the learning. Because this is kind of the initial phase, and then now we all sleep on it for the night, and you think of new things, and then you have new people ask you questions and discuss it in new ways. And as you do that, you really learn. The learning just becomes a lot deeper. So I'd encourage you to do that.
I have a question on that number 8 with the taxes. Were we right on there about the taxes? You don't worry about them until after the profits?
Yeah, more or less, right? So the taxes are very complex. This, you're absolutely right. For the intent and the purpose of this course, that's the right answer. Okay. As you probably know, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and it's more complicated than that in the real world as well. But what the question was trying to get at is to have you kind of think about that exactly. It's, okay, when do taxes come into play? The real answer is much more complicated, but that's what we want to be thinking about is, okay, when do these taxes come into play, and when will it start to hurt us?
Okay.
Okay.
Good point.
Sounds good.
Anything else?
Nope.
Yep.
All right. Well, excellent work. Thank you again. I apologize for being so late, but you guys did a great job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Good night.